Hey, this is Mr. V, over here doing a book review today for The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. Before I get into my book review, I want you guys to know that I try to do a spoiler-free book review, so if you see me looking down occasionally, I just have notes, so I try not to give any spoilers away. So, let's get into the book review for The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. So, the main premise for this book, it follows the main character, Bilbo. He is recruited by a wizard, Gandalf, to go on a quest with 13 other dwarves. And that's about as much as I can say, as I don't want to give any spoilers away. So that's the main premise of it. And, I thought that this was a really fun book to read. You heard the main premise, but it's like, I thought this was a lot of fun because it had a really fun beginning. As the author immediately just wraps you in the story. As you learn who Bilbo is, about what a hobbit is, and about wizards, you realize that you're like in this magical world immediately. But he just wraps you in immediately, and he gets things going pretty fast. And like, it was a great first chapter because like they were already talking about the quest in like just the first, I forget when, but like the first few chapters, they're already talking about the quest that they're going to go on. And I think that's why it just wraps you in immediately. And he also introduces the characters immediately. I don't think he like draws it out in any way because he does introduce all the characters immediately. Now, there are a lot of characters, but most of them are very minor characters to where you kind of just need to know the name or barely even know anything about it. There's only a few of the main characters. I kind of look at it as like a whole gang of characters because there are technically 14 people going on this quest. But realistically, they only talk about 3 of the main characters. So it's like, yeah, even though there's a bunch of them, you don't need to know all of them. But, he does give an introduction with just the name type of thing and like who they are to an extent. So, that's why I think it's just a lot of fun right from the beginning. But it's also that this book was fun because the quest is just a fun adventure. It's this magical one, but it is a lot of fun because many things happen during this quest. There's many things, and despite many things happening, he keeps the story flowing smoothly. It's just throughout the whole book. It's a very just flows very smoothly, and there's some times where you're just going through the different parts of the quest, and other times are like super intense. And that's what also makes it fun. It's like those super intense scenes or chapters, you can say, where like there's like those heart-pounding ones where there's like an intense getaway, or there's like having to deal with different magical creatures, whether that be like these certain types of big creatures or goblins or different wizards, elves, all that stuff. There's all different types of magical and mythical things, including crazy forests and different mountains. And it's just, there's a lot. There's too many for me to list. I just already listed a lot. And in those scenes, you sometimes are wondering like, okay, what type of creature is this? Will this creature help? Is it good? Is it bad? And then sometimes when you find out if they're good or bad, you wonder like, will they survive certain scenes? And it's like, generally with these books, yeah, you may know that the main character survives, but you do wonder because there's such a big pack, will all of them survive? Or what will happen if some of them get injured? What happens? And that's why it's very fun, even when you go on these adventures. And that's what also makes the non-intense scenes very fun. Because there's something always happening. There's always something happening in the book. So it just keeps you entertained throughout the whole quest. And I think it's because something's always happening. But I also think it's because he had a great main character. The main character is just he's just a lot of fun. And that there was just overall the other characters that they were all a lot of fun. And I think it was because there was nice character development. He doesn't go super in depth with the characters, so it's not like the super in depth character development, but he definitely lets you know enough about the characters. And then you learn more throughout the book, which is fun as you see some of the difficulties they're put through and how they act and what happens after. And, you see things like that. And that's how you get to learn the characters a bit more. So that's a lot of fun learning about them. Especially because they're like all these different magical creatures you're learning about, and the main ones, dwarves and wizards. But it's like you learn all these other magical creatures, so it's a lot of fun with that character development. And I told you the main character is a lot of fun, and you know who he is right from the beginning, right from the first chapter on. The author just lets you know immediately. He introduces him perfectly, So that is great. Now, some of the things that I did not like about this book. This was kind of a mixed bag, but was one of the things I didn't like about the book was that he described how some characters looked, but he didn't describe other ones. Now, for most of them, I said you didn't need the description. The gang was way too big, and you just need to know they're part of that. They're the dwarves that were part of the gang. But there were some of the characters where they would run into where they didn't describe what they really look like, despite them being pretty big for part of the story. So it's like, that was one thing I didn't like, but like other ones he would describe. So it was kind of a mixed bag on that area. And then another thing I didn't like about it was that there was one chapter, or basically storyline, that I felt dragged a little too long. I can't say which one, but there was one that just dragged a little too long. It's not bad. It's not like, oh, this storyline sucked. But there was one area where I was like, okay, you're fleshing it out a little too much type of thing. And I think he could have probably cut it back. Probably could have cut the chapter about like a quarter of the chapter out, because that was a very long chapter. But, those are the only two things I didn't like about it. Because, again, that one part that I said he could have cut down the chapter, I still didn't think that storyline was bad. But as for the writing, I thought that this was a very well-written book. And it's well written because it wraps you into the story. Like, he wraps you into the story, and he keeps it very smooth throughout the whole story. Like, it just flows very smoothly. And what's really cool about it was that he used like this mythical style language. Because, this is supposed to take place a long time ago, like in mythical, like the middle world and all that, with all these wizards. Yet he uses like this mythical language when describing things or when they talk to each other. So it kind of like sets you into that world. And that was really cool about it. And I think that helps the story a lot. But I also thought he did a great job writing with the character development, but that he did a great job describing like the scenery. He just did a great job, because then you can like envision like what it looks like, and that is really, really cool. I really enjoyed that aspect of it, so I thought that he did a great job with the writing, and that it is well written. Now, as for the end, I judge an end by many things. One is if you like the end, but a lot of times does it wrap everything up, because I don't like ends that have like too many loose ends type of thing. But I thought this had a very nice ending. I thought this had a nice end because I enjoyed the end, but he wrapped everything up, which is always good. He wrapped everything up, and I also thought that it was a fun end because it kept you on the edge of your seat until literally the very end. So that's always a good thing, that when it keeps you on the edge until the end. And I just enjoyed it overall. So let me give you my official rating for this book. So I always rate my books on a scale of 0 to 10, with a 0 being an awful book, a 5 is average, and a 10 is phenomenal. If it gets anywhere near 10, you should put that on your reading list, because a 5 is average, and I'm a tough critic, so it's hard to move up even 1 point in my rating system. So for The Hobbit, I'm going to rate this book an 8. Remember, a 5 being average. I'm going to rate this book an 8, which is very high in my rating system. But I thought this book definitely deserves an 8 because it's a lot of fun. He keeps you entertained throughout the whole quest, and that it is just a fun subject, and like just everything was just very fun overall in the book. Great character development, everything. And there's very few downfalls to the book. So I definitely recommend you guys go and read this book. If you guys have any comments or anything like that, please post it in the comment section below. I hope you guys click the subscribe button, as I always upload multiple different types of book reviews. But thank you for watching my book review today. This is Mr. V. Go enjoy reading.